Hello, and welcome to Viva La Action, the movie podcast where we're talking about all things action movies. The good, the bad, the underrated. My name is Santi, and with me as always is the best co-host in the business. It's Grayson.
Hello, that's me.
What's
A
cracking?
co-host. Not much. My whole body, actually has been getting better, but it still kind of hurts from. I just moved. Had to take just some of the heaviest shit you've ever seen up 4 flights of stairs. So no elevator, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're slowly recovering.
That's good.
Well,
But Grayson, you don't have to lie to the good people at home. You can let them know that by night you're actually a masked Mexican wrestler.
yes. This white person here, definitely a masked Mexican wrestler at night.
Why not? You could be.
You're right. You don't know.
What would be your masked Mexican wrestler name?
Probably something original like El Gringo or something.
Oh, well, we got there at the end. That was a good riff we just went on.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do we do on this show, Grayson?
We talk about action movies.
We sure do.
Whether or not they're good or bad or whatever, we talk about them.
Everything in between.
Yeah.
Each week or each episode, not each week because we don't record each week, but each episode we take a look at a different action film, and that's what we've done today. And today we're going to be talking about the 2021 action comedy film, The Paper Tigers.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
Not gonna lie, I literally just finished watching it this morning.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So that just means it's fresh.
I was going to say, we got some fresh insights.
Yeah.
Like I said, The Paper Tigers is a 2020 American martial arts action comedy film written and directed by Bao Tran in his feature film directorial debut. The film stars Elaine Yu, Ron Yuan, Michael Shannon Jenkins, and Matthew Page, with a stunning 98% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
And a whopping 93% audience score. I think that puts this movie in like the top maybe 2 percentile of movies we've watched. And just to give everybody a perspective, if you've never listened to the show before, we've watched movies that literally have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, and we've watched movies that have 0%.
Yeah, we've watched shit that doesn't even have a rating.
Like more than once, like at least 4 times we've watched.
Yeah. Yeah, we have quite a few under our belt that are like below like 40%.
Oh yeah, we run the gamut. What doesn't run the gamut is this movie when it comes to the Bechdel test, because it does not pass.
Nope. There's like one woman.
That literally there is one woman in this movie, and she's a real bitch.
Yeah, she's a piece of work.
No, I mean it's just we'll talk about it. I should make it clear to the people listening at home that was a joke.
Yeah.
I respect women.
I
have a shirt that says that. No.
Yeah, he drinks his respect women juice.
Yeah, every morning.
Every morning. Huge overflowing glass.
Yeah. I start every morning by a leather-clad woman slapping me across the face, telling me, that I'm just a little piece of shit.
Yep.
What does that have to do with women's liberation? Basically nothing. I don't even know why I said it.
Back was up against the wall there.
Yeah, I don't know. What we're talking about doesn't matter. Okay, the plot synopsis from IMDb. Three kung fu prodigies have grown into washed up middle aged men. Now one kicks away. Oh, sorry. Now one kick away from pulling their hamstrings. But when their master is murdered, they must juggle their dead end jobs, dad duties, and old grudges to avenge his death.
Ba-ba-bam.
Um, so that's pretty much the foundational knowledge you need to go into this. And before we get into the spoiler territory and we talk about the film's plot and its background and all that stuff, what'd you think of this movie?
I liked it.
It's good.
It was very good. I didn't realize it was an action comedy, but knowing that now, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I will say it's not the kind of comedy that'll make you like strain a muscle laughing,
No.
but it's goofy.
Yeah.
And it'll make you chuckle.
I would go so far as to say it's lighthearted. It's a very
Yeah.
like this is not a I'm trying to think of a movie we watched that's super serious. This isn't like a Fury or
Right.
Zatoichi or anything like that. Like this is very lighthearted. It's pretty low key. Like
Yeah.
you're really just following these three kind of goofballs as they're like attempting to like track down one guy.
Yeah.
It's a lot of just middle-aged men getting their asses kicked.
Yeah. It's
I
pretty
would say
funny.
there's some good physical comedy in it. I would say a lot of the jokes aren't necessarily like you said, laugh out loud funny. It's more like it's kind of that like banter between friends funny where like
Yeah.
you're all kind of laughing and enjoying it, but it's not like, you're not gonna, like you said, hurt yourself laughing.
Yeah.
And it's not a joke a minute either. It's mostly like
No.
it's a lot of people like, talking to somebody and then for some reason they have to get into a fight or somebody
Yeah.
challenges them to a fight and then
Yeah.
they have a couple of quips and then that's it.
And that's it. Yeah.
But yeah, it's very solid, I think,
Oh
this
yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
And it's a miracle it's as good as it is given the context of it, and we'll talk about that. But yeah. Sorry, the puppy was wriggling.
Uh-oh.
Lost my train of thought. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, besides the humor, what did you think of the action part of the action comedy?
It was solid. I think it was really well done and well choreographed.
Yeah.
And I think they did a good job. Stand by. Yeah. They did a good job with these three guys and making it seem like they are way out of practice.
Yeah.
Because they got their asses handed to them more than once.
Oh yeah, multiple times. In fact, I don't think there's any fight that they get into that they like don't get their asses handed to them.
Yeah, like win decisively.
Yeah, it's usually they either kind of stumble into victory or somebody interrupts them as they're about to get knocked unconscious.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good fun. And I would also
Yeah.
say, yeah, if you're going in expecting like, I don't know, The Raid or something, it's not that. It's mostly
No.
just like you said, it's like two guys kind of sparring, and one of them maybe doesn't have a knee that works properly.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of him falling on the floor, which is fine. It's entertaining, and I would
Yeah.
say too, the hits, it's all played for laughs. Like, I guess this is a spoiler, but nobody dies in this movie except for one person at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And even though the hits do feel really impactful, like when somebody gets punched in the face, you really kind of feel it.
Oh yeah.
There's no real like viscera. It's mostly
No.
just like I said, just kind of middle-aged men falling on the floor, which is entertaining in its own right.
Yes. It's like watching kids fall down.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, that's the best thing. Is just
Yeah.
watching. Because I work in retail. For those who don't know, And quite often we get like parents who are not watching their children,
Yeah.
which is just like the biggest just annoyance in all of
History.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is something incredibly satisfying about when you're watching a little kid running around unsupervised and then they
Yeah.
just smack into something and
Yeah.
just go down. And there's that little part of you that's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. Get some, idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is very satisfying.
Oh yes. Yeah. There's nothing like watching a kid just fucking slam into a glass door or something.
Eat dirt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just eat dirt. Yeah.
It's that and old people
Oh yeah.
falling because kids fall hard.
Yeah.
Old people fall slow
Very slowly. Yeah.
and they like flail around. They make a lot of noises
Oh
and it's
yeah.
funny.
If anybody ever wants a special brand of comedy, somebody should try to trip me because as I've described myself before, um, I have really good reflexes, but I'm also really clumsy. And so you'll
Yeah.
often see me like trip over the corner of something and I will fall for 10 minutes because
Oh
it's
yeah.
like it's just me stumbling forward, catching myself, falling, catching myself, falling
Yeah.
until eventually I just give up and just fall. Um,
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. I'll start falling and then I just won't stop. I'm actually still falling.
Yeah. I have witnessed because for those who don't know, Grayson physically is like a Muppet come to life insofar as I once watched Grayson and I used to live together,
Yeah.
and there's this moment that I think about like every day where Grayson was getting something out of the fridge and I was getting something out of the freezer, and I had
Oh
opened the freezer door not knowing that Grayson was underneath me, and they closed the fridge door and then like stood up and smacked into the freezer door like unnaturally hard. Like I feel like you almost sped up as you slammed into the door and
yeah.
just fell like a cartoon character like flat on the ground. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I forgot about that.
words cannot describe the noise you made. It was
Yeah.
pure comedy.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was what gets me is that you didn't see me opening and getting something out of the fridge.
I don't know. I don't know. It just yeah. That was a comedy of errors.
Yeah, that sure was something.
Um, but that being said, um, before we excuse me,
Uh-oh, you're dying.
I am dying. Before we get into the movie spoilers, would you recommend somebody watch this film?
Yes. It's like you said, it's lighthearted enough that it's like you don't have to worry about it being too serious and like having to prepare yourself for like deep shit. But it's also like serious enough that the stakes like actually matter.
Yeah,
And you care about these characters.
yeah,
And so yeah, it's a really solid movie and I would highly recommend it to anybody.
yeah. I agree. Um, I especially would recommend it for two reasons that don't really have anything to do with the plot or anything, but more so, one, you can watch it for free. I think it's on like Tubi and a couple other places. And two, it's under 2 hours. I think it's like an
Oh yeah.
hour 45 or something like that.
Something,
Um,
yeah.
so it's a pretty breezy watch. And yeah, like you said, to get into spoilers a little bit, um, I think one of the nice things about this movie that for some reason seems kind of uh lacking in a lot of movies that are made currently. The characters, especially the lead in this, he's a real asshole at the start. Like,
Yeah,
and I don't mean like he's mean to anybody, but he's just kind of he's inconsiderate. Um,
selfish.
he's selfish. He's like he's a bad dad.
Yeah.
Um, And by the end of the movie, he goes through a real journey, and I think part of that is he gets his ass kicked a lot, but also, um,
Yeah.
by the end of the movie, you are rooting for him, which is a nice thing to see in a movie. I don't know, I'm, like, over the trope of, like, movies now where, like, nobody can be a bad guy anymore. Like, everybody has
Mm,
to start out the best
good.
guy. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they just somehow get even better.
Yeah.
Like, I like that, we meet them as kids. We have kind of this flashback of them as, like, teenagers. But then when we first see Danny as an adult, he's like he sucks. He's
Oh,
late
yeah,
picking
the
up his
worst.
kid.
Yep.
He
He
promises to
blocks
take
off
it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he blocks somebody off
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
parking lot.
just traps the soccer mom in.
Yep.
He freaking promises to take his kid to Disneyland and then just doesn't. Um,
Oh, it's actually Magic
oh, sorry,
Land.
Magic Land.
When he first said that, I thought that was like a joke.
Yeah,
But no, in this universe, Disneyland does not exist,
yeah,
and it's Magic
it's
Land.
Magic Land. Um, yeah, and I like I said, by the end of the movie, you know, we don't know all the intricacies of whatever, but it's clear that he's reconnected with his friends. He's be trying to be a more considerate dad. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I like that he goes through an arc. I mean, they all kind of do, but
Yeah.
um, there is something nice too. I think because one of the things I wanted to talk about with this movie, um, initially, because the directors had the idea for this movie for like 10 years.
Oh shit.
He's been brewing it since like 2011 is what I read. Um, and he when he initially pitched it, he pitched it to like a couple of Hollywood studios, and according to him, the studios would be like they would like the idea of the movie. They'd be like, "Oh, this is a good concept," but they would only approve a budget if it would have one. It would be like a white lead, so they didn't want to have like an Asian American lead. Um, and two, they wanted to like have an older actor like Bruce Willis or like Nicolas Cage or somebody like that, like in a
What?
major role to kind of like draw in like that straight to video like geezer teaser crowd. Um, and one thing I like about this movie and sort of the spirit of it is the director had the foresight to be like, no, like, if
Yeah.
I give into that, this is just going to become any one of those, generic, you know, action sniper man movies or whatever. You
Yeah.
see the covers of them at Walmart and whatever.
Oh yeah.
Um, because I think this movie is definitely a step above something like that because you can feel the sort of the passion in it. Um, and one thing I was going to touch on is this idea that I think the movie has a really good sense of like one of its themes is this idea of community, like
Yeah.
giving back to your community, being a part of something bigger than yourself. And I think part of that comes from this movie was like a genuine kind of community effort. Like I was reading that, they got a lot of the budget from like a Kickstarter, and then a couple of like local investors because this movie was all shot in Seattle,
Wow.
which is where Bruce Lee is from. And
Nice.
so they were like, we want to shoot it in Seattle because this, the martial arts community is so intrinsically tied to that, part of the country, and a lot of like local Seattle investors invested in this movie, including a guy who was a student of Bruce Lee. And then like even things like a lot of the catering was donated by like local sort of Chinese restaurants. Um, a lot of the places that they filmed at, they were able to film there for free because the local like people who lived there and whatever were like, yeah, we love it. Like uh, we won't charge you anything to shoot here. Like this movie in and of itself is a real kind of community effort, and
Yeah.
I think it's cool that one of the themes of the movie is this idea of like no person is, you know, what's the phrase? Like no person is I can't think of the word. Basically, like nobody is uh you are intrinsically a part of the wider world, right?
Yeah.
And you have to either choose to contribute to it or, let it kind of pass you by. Uh,
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
It is. I didn't know all that. That's very cool.
Yeah,
And yeah, the because it's all about because there's these like I guess clans.
sure. Yeah,
Um, I guess that's what they call them. And yeah, it's like, these three guys, they had a teacher, a master, and they considered him their father, and he considered them their sons. And when he died, this other clan, they helped put on the funeral, and they were there to honor this great master who died.
yeah,
Um, and that's always what I've liked about like this movie and like Yip Man is that like
yeah.
sure they're like different teachers or they're like different clans, they might be rivals, but at the end of the day they like respect each other.
Right. Yeah,
Um, and that is, and so when you get these outsiders that are coming in that don't respect or don't have any respect for anything like that, they
right.
always get their ass kicked, and it's very satisfying.
Oh yeah. Well, one thing, like you said, I think one thing this movie understands, and that I've appreciated about a lot of martial arts movies, is this idea that martial arts, especially like Chinese gung fu, is it's not just a way of fighting, right? It's
Yeah,
like it's all kind of linked together. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of being. And I think a big thing that is lost sometimes with martial arts and martial sports is I think people don't realize it's not just about the physical whatever that it brings to you, it's also the community that it builds up around you, right? Like
yep,
we see in this movie, he talks about one of the characters, his name is Hing. He talks about how, his master didn't just teach martial arts. He was a cook and whatever, but on the weekends he would teach medicine to the elderly, and he would help, give out food to the poor and like all this stuff. And that character talks about having regret because, you know, he was always getting asked to help out and he didn't see the value in it. And one of the last times he ever saw his master, he blew him off. Basically was like, I don't want to go do all this, whatever. And I like that by the end of the film, you see him kind of taking that back up and re-participating in that. Um, and I don't know. I think there is something like kind of in the, not to get serious for a second, but in the world that we live in currently, which is, it feels like increasingly we're moving towards this um ultra uh not selfish, but like this, like the idea that we are all, islands, right? That we're
yeah,
like the personal is the most important thing in the world. I think there is something to be said for, we all kind of need to reestablish this idea of community, right? Like, no person is going to survive on their own, right? Like,
no,
even if we do away with the system of capitalism and whatever, we're still going to have to rely on each other. Like, you know, like there is no way that one person can survive on their own. And there's also benefits to, like, being a part of your community, like understanding, like, yeah, it's good to have your peace, there's this whole idea of, well, protect your peace and like whatever, and like that's great, but also just because you don't owe the world something doesn't mean you shouldn't be a part of it, I guess.
right,
I don't know. And that's what I like, that's part of the messaging of this movie, is that idea, like,
yeah.
you no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. It's unfortunately here in America because like when you look at a bunch of different cultures, community is huge.
Yeah.
The issue with here in America is that we're very nationalist,
Yes.
and it's that idea of like, oh, pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. And so there's not a strong sense of community in this country
Right.
because, if you're asking for help, that's seen as a weakness,
Yeah.
which is just not true.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I totally agree. It sucks that we're, you know, moving in this direction of like not even just like relying, but just like thinking and being okay with helping others and just like forming communities
Right.
because they are super helpful.
Yeah.
And we see that in this movie.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was I did like that aspect of this movie. It was
Yeah.
very refreshing.
It is refreshing. And I think I really like too the characters in this movie. They all kind of have different backgrounds, and we see how they all kind of um you know how they've all evolved differently as characters. um and I love anytime in a movie, it's kind of a trope, but I like the trope of like, a group of friends who grow apart, but then as soon as they're like back together, they're like they fall right back into that friendship. Like I
Yeah,
enjoy that as soon as they're like back together again, they're all like hanging shit on each other and just
yeah,
like, you know, making fun of each other and stuff.
yeah. Nothing changed.
No. And I like that they are all at different like physicalities, I guess.
Yeah,
Like one of them has clearly not kept up with his physicality like at all. Like he's,
nope.
had an injury, he's very out of shape. One of them you can tell he maybe does some exercise, but like, he's not exactly an Olympian or anything. And then one of them is like a martial arts instructor and is like an MMA fighter.
Yeah,
And so I like that they all have kind of different like skill levels, I guess,
yeah,
at the start of the movie. And I like that they bring different things to the table, right? Like Hing, who's the one with the leg injury, when he does eventually start fighting again, you can tell that he's kind of like the heavy hitter. Like,
yeah,
he's got a lot of power. He's all about. There's a sort of a plot point about putting a lot of power into your kicks, right?
yep,
That's how they're kind of able to track down the villain. And then I like that Danny is very, he's the one who's like he's the fastest, right? And he talks about how he's not fast, he's just first.
yeah.
Um, and then the character of I forgot his character's name. Hold on.
Jim?
I think Jim. What's
Jim?
his, yeah, Jim. Yeah. Um, he's kind of the all around, fighter. Like he knows how to grapple and he knows how to, punch and kick and whatever.
Yeah,
Um, and it's fun when they do get into scrapes and you see them all kind of bring out their different styles, I guess.
yeah.
Um, I think my favorite fight in the whole movie is when they're fighting like the three hooligans
Oh,
in that
yeah,
empty pool.
yeah.
That's just such a fun
I do
scene.
like that one. I think that might also be my favorite. Um, because that one is filled with like the most like physical comedy, I think.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, it's satisfying to see those punks get their ass beat,
Oh yeah.
especially that one dude who fucking who said the N-word.
Yeah.
That was funny.
I do like at the end when they're like they've all kind of resolved it or whatever.
Yeah,
There's kind of like that thing you were talking about before, like in martial arts movies where they all kind of have respect for each other. Like
yeah,
now that they've all kicked each other's asses, they're like, all right, we're cool. Like,
yeah.
he even goes to tell him, sorry, I called you the N word.
N-word. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I do like too that Danny, who's kind of the main character, he's the only one in that fight who just goes down like immediately.
Yeah.
Like I think that's like such a great comedic moment where they're all ready to fight, and you think he's got kind of the upper hand, and then he just gets fucking
just
cleared.
bodied. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is and it makes it funnier because like he was the one meant to like take up the mantle
Yeah.
of like the head of this clan.
Yeah.
And so like you think, oh, this guy's got to be like the best
Mhm.
and all this kind of stuff, and then yeah, he just gets absolutely bodied.
Yeah.
And that it's like a throughout leading up to that final fight, like Danny, he barely wins
Yeah, most of the
anything.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we kind of figure out why, and it's that he doesn't believe in himself anymore because we find
Right.
that out at the end. But I think part of it too is that he's very much of this mindset of just walking away.
Yeah.
And so it seems like he's been walking away his whole life.
Mhm.
And so with that comes this idea of like, oh, well, all I've been doing is walking away. What chance do I have now?
Right.
And so he gets his shit rocked
Yeah.
consistently
Yeah.
up until the end.
Yeah. But and
So
even at the end, he gets
well,
his shit
yeah,
rocked 2 out of 3 rounds, and
yeah,
then
true.
at finally at the final fight, he kind of awakens that, part of himself.
Yeah,
Which that final fight, what I like about it is it's so unconventional for like a martial arts movie, because I think we're so used to like, especially like, like you said, like with Yip Man, almost always in a Yip Man movie, the final fight is between like Yip Man and a guy who is like equally skilled, and
yep,
it's this long drawn out whatever. And I like that in this movie, it's a lot of Danny just running away.
yep, yeah, because he knows
Like,
he's outmatched.
oh yeah. And the villain has this kind of mystical like deadly, whatever martial
Pointed
skill.
fingers.
Yeah, the poison fingers, it's kind of like the dim mak, like the
Yeah,
death touch. Which is a trope of kind of older martial arts movies. This idea that there's these guys who can, train themselves to shut your heart down or whatever.
yeah,
Um and I do like that. Like you said, the last little bit is just him being like, I am no match for this dude. Like, I just have to run away.
yeah. Well, like yeah, that first round they fight a little bit, and then he just goes and sits down and
Yeah.
lets the clock run,
Yeah.
which I thought was very funny.
There's also a great earlier in the movie, there's a very funny like visual gag where we see, because the characters first learn about their master's death, and they kind of go to his funeral, and at the funeral they encounter these punks who we talked about earlier, and Carter, who is this enormous man, who he's kind of an interesting character. He's like a guy that they kind of used to bully, and
Yeah,
he's grown into this just bizarre, like caricature of a man. Um,
yeah.
he
He
tells
was
them that, hey,
insufferable.
oh, he was pretty insufferable, and we should talk about that guy too, because his in real life his name is um, Matthew Page, um, and people watching this movie may recognize him. He has a web series um called, what is it? It's called like Enter the Dojo or something like that, where he plays Master Ken. I think you've sent me one of his videos before, I'm pretty sure. Um and he talks about having like he I think he even goes by like Master American, and he has these like
Ha!
comedic like martial arts like based like videos. Like a lot of them are laced with like innuendo, and they're kind of like,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
but a fun fact about him, he lives in Albuquerque.
No shit.
Yeah, real for absolutely. Like he even says on his Instagram page, it's like ABQ based martial arts master or whatever. It's so funny whenever I watch one of his videos and I'm like, oh my god, that's over by whatever, or that's
Yeah. Huh,
um
that's pretty cool.
so with that being said, I think we should try to get him on the show.
Absolutely.
I think he's always playing a character, so I think it'd be fun to even just get the character on the show.
Yep.
But even as an actor, I think he'd be a fun person to talk to.
No, 100%. I would love to get him on the show.
And he's a great character. Just like this, he's this white guy who's always like speaking in like Chinese proverbs, and he's like, he talks like a fortune cookie is kind of the joke that they make a lot of the time. But he's also this like roided up maniac.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great character. But the visual gag I was talking about earlier, he kind of tricks Danny and Hing into thinking that these punks have something to do with their master's death.
Oh yeah.
And so they go to like his restaurant to kind of investigate, and they see one of them, and he like takes off, and you think it's going to be this like foot chase, and you even see the camera like whips around to go follow him, and then all of a sudden the camera stops, pans back, and Hing and Danny are on the ground like gasping for air. Yeah, because they can't run.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Hang, he's got his busted ass leg, and it like gave out on him, and then Danny's like gasping for air on the ground. I laughed at that one.
It's a good gag because it's like, well, yeah, that is how you'd react if you were middle aged and didn't exercise.
Right. Yeah, like these guys are like in their 40s.
Yeah.
40s, maybe almost 50s.
Right.
And so, and they haven't really been keeping up with it. Yeah. And so they're wildly out of shape, and it's funny.
It is funny. It's a good movie. It's just solid like across the board, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember.
When fucking Carter said, we Chinese have a proverb. I'm like, my guy, you are Wonder Bread colored.
Oh my God.
You are not Chinese.
But you know what's funny is I feel like you do encounter people like that who,
oh yeah,
especially like weeaboos, who just like become so like obsessed with a certain culture that they start to think that they are part of it, even though that they like have nothing to do with it.
They're from like Toledo.
Right.
It's like, buddy, you're not Japanese. Sure, you might be able to speak the language, but do you know the history?
Yeah.
Do you know the culture? Do you know the customs? Do you know how to be respectful?
Oh yeah. No.
Because it seems like you're only in it for the anime titties.
Yes, exactly. Like you see that a lot again with those like weeaboo guys where they're just like, I just want to go to Japan and meet like a Japanese girl and like all, and it's like I feel like you've stepped out of reality and into like you think you're in an anime because it's like it's like, buddy, if like, no offense, but like if the women here don't like you, I don't think the women in Japan are gonna like you either.
No, yeah, especially if you're fetishizing them.
Yes,
like they are not your fetish.
No,
they are people.
Yeah, they're just people with a different culture than you.
Yeah, so yeah, those people. There's a couple of people that pop up on my TikTok that will do skits making fun of those people.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and they nail it every fucking time.
Yeah, it's sometimes hard to watch.
It is. Sometimes it is. But yeah, I think I knew like two of those guys in high school, and I kid you not, they would Naruto run everywhere.
Jesus Christ.
And I was like, there was part of me that was like, bullying is wrong. Yeah. However, I feel like I can make an exception.
Yes. Yeah, sometimes I think a little bullying's okay.
As a treat.
But you do see that. I think you see that with people who are super into martial arts too, where
100%, yeah.
There are these guys who think that like like with this Carter character, like they step out of reality and all of a sudden they think they are like a Chinese martial arts master or like a Shaolin monk or something. And it's
Yep.
like, buddy, you learned karate from, Master Dave down the road. Like you're not,
Yeah, you ain't shit.
yeah, you're not fucking Wong Fei Hung or whatever. Like
Yeah.
just let's relax. Like
Yeah. You're up here, bring it down here.
yeah. Like there's
All right,
nothing
it's not that
wrong.
serious.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with appreciating a culture. Like
Right.
that's kind of the whole point of this show is like I like to highlight different movies from different cultures because I think it's good to be a part of the world, but you can take it too far into like you said fetishization or just like yeah, like fantasy land. Like, you know,
Yep.
like yeah, China is, it's a very rich place with an interesting culture, but it's not a martial arts movie. Like if you
No.
go there, you're just going to encounter regular people just living
Right.
their lives. And
Yeah.
I think that's a hard thing for people to like process sometimes. It's like
Yeah. We see, because a lot of the times when we, especially in movies, we get a romanticized version of a lot of these places, and we
yeah.
don't get the just like normal everyday minutia of like what it's like to live in these places as just a normal person,
Yeah.
right? Because like, sure, you can go to these huge cities, right, and see all this bustling life and all that kind of stuff, but they also have suburbs.
Yeah.
They got tiny little towns
Yeah.
where it's not all these like huge flashy like neon signs and all this kind of stuff. It's mom and pop shops,
Right.
all right? And so there's the romanticized version which people get hung up on, and that's what they want.
Yeah.
And then there's the reality of the situation, and it feels like a lot of those people that like expect the romanticized version of a place and then they go there, they get severely disappointed because it's not what they expected.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's even a thing it's called like Paris syndrome, which
Yes.
is I think it was coined specifically for Japanese tourists who went to Paris thinking it was like, like in the movies, like it's this magical, beautiful, whatever, and they go and realize it's basically just a regular city.
Yeah.
Um, and they get physically sick because they're so disappointed. Like I think I kind of even though I think of myself as being kind of outside that, you know, idea,
Yeah.
I even experienced it like recently. I went to New York for the first time, and you think of New York City as this magical, like whatever. And yeah, it was super cool, and I thought it was a great city. But once you actually get there, you're like, oh, it's just a city. Like it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
it's a cool city, but it's just a
Yeah.
city. Like
Yeah.
if you've been to any big city, you've been to New York. Like
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I was thinking about, the time I went to, I've been to London and Paris and Edinburgh, which are like three of some of the bigger cities over there in Europe. Yeah, they're just cities.
yeah,
And it was cool because, I had never been that far outside of the US,
right.
and I tried to maintain my expectations because I didn't want to have those like, oh, it's going to be so cool, this is what we see in the movies. This is the perception of these places that we're told and shown, and then get disappointed.
Right.
And so when we got there, I was like, oh, yeah, it's a bigger Albuquerque.
Yeah.
That's all it is,
Yeah.
with like a decent taxi service.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Um,
because, we we live in a not a big city, but like
no.
a city, right?
Yes.
And I work in the touristy part of town,
Yeah.
and I do encounter people who are like, "Man, this isn't anything like I thought it would be." And it's like, "Yeah, it's just a regular stinky city." Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's not I think people imagine like Albuquerque to a lesser extent, but like any city that has some sort of mythical like take Cairo for example. Like
Yeah.
people think of Cairo as this like it's in the middle of the desert and there's these pyramids or whatever. And then you see pictures of the pyramids and like right behind it is a Pizza Hut. Like
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's my favorite thing. There's this post that circulates Tumblr that talks about that exact thing.
yeah.
Because it'll show a picture of the pyramids, right? And you're like, oh wow, that's really cool. And then it'll zoom out just a little bit, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's a fucking Pizza Hut
Yeah.
and like a highway,
Yeah.
little like industrialized area,
Right.
right in front of the pyramids.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yeah, and that's it.
Yeah. And supposedly the Pizza Hut actually has a super good view of the Pyramid of Giza.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough about all that
Yeah.
crap. I had something else I was going to say and I forgot. I don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
one thing. So just a fun piece of trivia. So one of the inspirations for this movie, I think that kind of shines through is like the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Because this definitely has like shades of that, like these American kids getting taught by like a master who comes from wherever. And speaking of the Karate Kid, when they go to that restaurant that's like it's like the fancy restaurant with like the white tables,
Oh, yeah.
and that waiter comes up to them and is like talking to them. That actor, his name is Yuji Akumoto. And he plays the character of Chosen in The Karate Kid Part 2.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so he's kind of like a fun little cameo.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
like at the end when he's talking about like, hey, I could be like the fourth tiger or whatever.
Yeah. I learned
Um,
karate.
yeah. See that it's kind of a
Ah,
joke about because he's like the villain in The Karate Kid Part 2.
gotcha.
So that's a fun little fact for everybody. Um, I'm trying to think if I had anything else. Let me look at my notes. No, I don't really have anything else. Um, it's fun watching this movie now that I've actually been to Seattle because I recognized a lot of the locations.
Oh, nice.
Because we actually one of the days we were there, we took time out to go to Chinatown and like
Oh,
look around
nice.
a little bit. Super beautiful part of Seattle. I highly encourage everybody to go to Seattle. Super cool city.
Same.
Um, yeah, but besides that, I got nothing else.
Yeah. Um, I think the one other thing that I really liked was the music,
Yes.
and it played a pretty good role in the comedy, which I was not surprised by, but I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Because they would like hard cut out the music. Um, uh, because there'd be this like they'd be in the middle of this fight. It was you get this swelling music, and you think, oh, our main characters are gonna win, and then all of a sudden they just like get their ass beat or like something would happen, and then it just hard cut
Yeah.
the music, and it just added that much more to the comedy.
Yeah.
And it was really well done.
Oh yeah, I think there's like a literal record scratch at one point.
Yes.
Like literally, it's like like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I did have that thought that the music is really nice. It's good. It's not distracting, but it is
No.
like very well done score. It's
Yeah.
an interesting mix of like modern and kind of orchestral stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a solid movie all around.
It is. And I did want to say too, I really liked the opening.
Yes, the opening is cool.
It was really well done, and you know, it gave us pretty much all of the information we needed with almost zero dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And so it was really cool.
Oh, one thing I wanted to say too. The character of Jim, when he's older, he's played by an actor named Michael Shannon Jenkins, I think. But when he's younger, he's played by this actor whose his first name is Guy. And two fun facts about him. One, well, I guess sort of three. Um, if anybody has ever watched the YouTube channel The Corridor Crew, he is often on the series called like Stunt People React or whatever.
Hmm,
He's featured on that a lot because he is a pretty well-known stunt actor.
nice.
He even doubled for Chadwick Boseman in Black Panther.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
so that's fun. And then the sort of the third fun fact is that I actually ran into him one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was in LA for my honeymoon, and my wife and I happened to just go to this little like cafe for breakfast, and we were sitting, and I looked across the restaurant, and I was like, I think that's that guy.
Huh.
And I just like waited for a little while, and I was like, oh no, that's like definitely him. I think he was like there for a meeting or something. So I didn't bother him,
Yeah.
but I was just like, look at that, there's that guy.
That's really
Um,
cool.
so I have witnessed that man. I know he's real.
In the wild.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, PSA to everybody. If you see a famous person out and about and they look like they're busy, don't bother them.
No. Yeah.
Um, and in fact, even if they don't look busy, don't bother them. If you want to
Ye-
meet them and talk with them, look at where they're gonna like do meet and greets at
Yeah.
like a convention or something, and then do that.
I think that's a good rule of thumb. I think like what people don't understand is like approaching somebody like that when they are occupied is a great way to have a bad experience.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
I know that people have this mentality of like, oh my God, I might never see them again or whatever. But it's like the story is more fun, I guess, if you're able to just be like, I saw them, and
yep,
they were doing whatever. And that's a nice experience as opposed
yes,
to I went up to them and they were kind of mean to me because I was bothering them.
yeah,
Like, because it kind of makes you look like an asshole.
yeah,
Um, so I would say, like, if you're going to approach a famous person, the context is pretty important. Like, if they're
yep,
just on the street, like, not doing anything, I don't think there's anything wrong with going up and just being like, hey, Jack Black, like, I love
yeah,
your work or whatever.
yeah,
And if you want to ask for a picture, like, if they're cool with that, that's up to you. But
yeah,
definitely, yeah, if they are occupied with something, like, especially if they're out to eat, just leave them alone. Like,
yeah.
if somebody came up to me and like while I was engaged in eating, I'd be like, "Fuck off!" Like,
Go away. Yeah, I'm trying to eat here. And that's the thing that people don't realize is that these famous people, they're just people.
yeah,
They're just human beings.
right.
And so,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, how would you like it if some jackass you didn't know waltzed up to you while you were in the middle of maybe you were with your family?
yeah,
How would you feel if they waltzed up to you and just started talking to you?
right. Like, that's the thing. Is it something that I'm going to say, and this might piss people off, and I whatever. We need a little rage bait in our podcast to grow some some viewership here.
Exactly.
So we'll do it about an hour into the show.
Excellent.
uh, I think something that people don't understand is the relationship between you and particularly actors. That relationship doesn't extend as far as I think people think it does. Like, people have this idea that it's like, well, I support your movies and I do whatever, so you like owe me something. And I hate to break it to people, but that is not the case,
No.
because when you purchase a movie ticket, right? What you get in return is a movie, right?
Yeah.
Like if I go to the store and I buy an orange, right? I don't
Yeah.
then, like, the person who grew the orange doesn't then owe me something, right? Like,
Right.
because what I
They
got
gave you an orange.
they gave me an orange, right? So, like, I don't understand why people think that it's different with like movies, because it's like
Right.
what you're paying for is the movie. It's not like they owe
Right.
you something else. Like, what they gave you was the product. Like,
Yeah.
so
That's how goods and services
yeah,
work.
and people act like it's like you personally paid them to make the movie, and it's like, no, they have already gotten paid. Like,
Yeah.
they're just doing a job. And so
Yeah.
I think people don't have it through their heads that, like, actors or singers or whatever, they don't then owe you additional things. Like
Right.
they've already given you whatever. Now, that's different if you go to like a convention or if you go to like whatever, because you are paying for their time, right?
Yeah.
That's a different transaction. But
Yes.
like me going up to you in the street, I'm just bothering you. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing is like you said something really important. These people already got paid.
right,
It's not like they made the movie, released it, and now they're waiting for people to go see the movie to get their money.
right.
They've been paid.
Yeah, that's the whole point of a union is like
Yeah,
you get paid before the thing comes out because otherwise you're never going to get paid because whatever. Like,
right. If what if the movie tanks, right?
yeah,
Well, now you've spent all of this time and you get paid shit,
yeah,
right? The unions make sure that you get paid what you were owed, and then the sales will make up that credit.
right, exactly. Like I don't know. Yeah, just if you're going to like be with somebody, like if you're going to go meet somebody, just don't be weird. Just like
Right.
if you're in a situation where you wouldn't want to be bothered, don't bother that person. That
Right.
a good rule of thumb. But anyway,
Yeah.
um we have unfortunately run out of time. Um, so we do
Rip.
have to wrap up the show.
All right.
Um, and we're going to do that by entering everybody's favorite section of the show, which is where you rate this movie out of 10.
I'm gonna have to give it like probably like a 9.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. 9 seems fair.
Wow. You really liked it then.
Yeah. No, I there wasn't a single moment where I was like bored.
Yeah.
And it had my attention start to finish. I was almost immediately invested in these characters. And I wanted to see them succeed in all of this, and the ending was really nice to see like all these three different guys like sort of remembering who they are and what they are capable of and using that for good and like
Yeah.
helping others. Um and it was well shot. It was written well, I think. Music was good. Combat and like action was really good. Um, Good use of comedy.
Oh,
This
yes.
is a solid movie.
I'm with you. I think for me, this is like, I'm going to say like an 8.5.
Eight and a
Like an
half.
8.5. And it's not that I don't agree with everything you just said because I do.
Yeah,
I think there is something lacking in maybe I don't know what it is. I don't think it's necessarily for me a 9 or a 10, but I can't find any specific faults with it. It's more just like a vibe thing. Like
that's fair.
it's I feel like there is just this tiny little iota of something that isn't there that should be. And even though I can't put my finger on what it is, I can't ignore it. But that being said,
Right.
I think this is an infinitely like recommendable movie. I think
Yeah,
this is the definition of like an underrated film. Like 90% of people haven't even heard of this movie, let alone, seen it. Um yeah, I think this is great. It's just it's worth your time. It's worth your money if you feel like spending money on it. Um
yeah,
it's yeah, it's great.
it is.
So, with that, we're going to take a little bit of time and we're going to recommend some stuff to you. Um, so this is the section we like to call editor's picks,
Way.
as said by Toad from Mario. Do you got something?
um, you go first.
Okay. I am going to recommend a Korean film from a couple of years ago called The Killer. I think it came out 2022. Um, the name of the director escapes me at the moment, but he also directed another good like action film called The Swordsman that came out a couple of years before that. But The Killer is sort of a classic Korean revenge action thriller thing. It's super bloody, like
Nice.
super just well choreographed action. I'm going to say something bold here. I think it's as good as John Wick 2 or 3,
Wow.
probably. I think I would put it on that level. Um, really good. Just if anybody has the chance, I think it's free on like Amazon Prime. I don't know how it escaped me. Like it feels like one of those movies I should have seen already.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Maybe it's just because I was on a plane and I was like held captive to it, but
There you
yeah,
go.
it's fucking fantastic. So go watch The Killer if you're into any kind of action movie. I think you'll like it.
There you go. I'm thinking a lot about Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, okay. Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, that is a fantastic movie.
It
A little
is
spooky,
a little spooky, a little sad.
yeah, but it is. I think it's one of those ones that like I hate. I don't want to say you have to watch it, but I highly encourage if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it.
Yeah.
Um, it is. I mean, Guillermo del Toro is a fucking powerhouse in
Oh
the
yeah.
industry.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's just one of those really solid movies that is infinitely watchable.
Yes.
Um, and so yeah, Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh yeah. No, that's a solid recommend. That's a great
Yeah,
movie.
it is.
Visually stunning,
Oh my god.
incredible creature effects.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great movie.
fantastic movie. I've just been thinking about it recently, and I'm like, I gotta rewatch that. It's so good.
That's a good one to rewatch.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the show.
Yes.
Um, and I just want to say thank you for listening.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this show, leave us a nice review. 5 stars really helps out the show. You can
Yep.
do it right in the Spotify app, Apple Podcasts, wherever.
Yep.
Stitcher, if it's still up. Um, Podbean, Podcast Addict.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can like, comment,
Yep,
share.
absolutely. Share it with a friend.
Yep.
If you got something you'd want us to watch, there's a Google form linked below that you can fill out a little anonymous thing and recommend us a film. But if you don't want to do that, you can send us an email,
Yep.
vivalaaction@gmail.com. If you do
You can
that, you
also
can
hit up,
also. Oh, go
you can
ahead.
hit up our you can hit up our DMs
Oh, yes. Yep.
on Instagram, Twitter. No, not Twitter.
Facebook,
Instagram, Facebook,
TikTok,
TikTok,
uh, LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
No. uh, yeah. You
I'm
can
gonna
do
make
some.
us a Tumblr.
Yeah. Tumblr. Um, uh, uh, Google Plus. Is that still around?
Who knows?
Yeah, send us a DM. And if you do
Yep.
any of those things, we can send you a sticker for
Yep.
free. We still got some left. Um, so feel free to hit us up for any of that.
Yep.
But otherwise, just recommend us to somebody in your life
Yep.
that you think would like it. Um, and we'll say, hey, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Watching the podcast or listening or whatever. Um, anyway, that's it.
Yep.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
You'll find Grayson stuck inside the freezer section of Walmart.
I'm
Trapped
actually there
in
right now.
trapped in one of those little freezer things.
Yep.
They were trying to get to the sorbet and just got their hands stuck.
Yep. It happens.
Yep, and the it's counting down till you freeze to death. And you'll find me spinning on my head like a break dancer in the middle of Chicago.
Downtown LA.
Oh yeah, downtown LA. Dressed like the Pink Panther
Beetlejuice.
or Beetlejuice.
Both. You're dressed
Both,
as
yeah.
you're dressed as Pink Panther, dressed as Beetlejuice.
There you go. Anyway, that's it. Bye.
Adios.
Ah.